Aecon Group is a national Canadian construction and infrastructure development company with global experience. In addition to building future infrastructure, they're also committed to reducing their impact by acting responsibly in every aspect of their business. Joining me today is Prab Banga, VP of Sustainability at Aecon, to tell us how they're doing just that. Hi, Prab. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to talk to you because I know that your company has done you're doing a lot of great, wonderful things on the road to net zero. And I know that you're reducing your impact. You're acting responsibly, in two key ways. I had a chance to look through your sustainability report, and you really break it down into what we build and how we build it, which, through the podcast, you can probably break those down for me. But tell us about your journey, to contributing to a sustainable future.
Yeah, for sure. So I was hired at Aecon about 3 years ago, and that was around the time that we really started to see stakeholder demand about sustainability, us focusing on sustainability, our investors asking us questions about our sustainability strategy. And we also noticed a trend amongst our clients really asking us to integrate sustainability into construction practices. So we were always focused on environmental management, Indigenous relations, and I would say about 3 to 4 years ago was really when we started to formalize our sustainability strategy. And it's exactly what you mentioned. It's what we build and how we build it. So
Mm-hmm.
the what we build is really about us building infrastructure projects that are driving the transition to a net zero future. So that includes advanced transit networks, utility scale, sustainable energy systems, as well as home energy technologies. On the what we build, we really partner with our clients to work collaboratively on our sustainability goals. And we're really driving towards a decarbonization of energy systems in Canada and in North America. And then in addition to what we build, we are really focused on how we build. So that's all about how we're integrating sustainability into our construction practices and what we refer to as operationalizing sustainability. So we look at what we do on a typical construction site and how we can reduce our impact and what new technologies we can reduce across our construction practices to be able to reduce our emissions and reduce our impact.
Going to just to expand upon the what we build side of it, with in particular advancing the transit networks or utility scale sustainable energy systems and green home technology. There's one that comes to mind, or actually two. There's the battery storage project, Oneida, and you worked with the Aecons, the Six Nations or Indigenous partners, but also there's the Montreal, I can't speak French, but the REM. It's the light transit. So those are two key projects. Do you want to touch on those a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. We're really excited about Oneida. It's going to be one of Canada's largest battery storage system. And it is a partnership. So it's a partnership between the Six Nations of the Grand River Development Corporation, Aecon Concessions, Enerstore, and Northland Power. And the battery supplier is actually Tesla.
Mm.
So Oneida project is going to be 250 megawatts, so 1,000 megawatts per hour energy storage facility. The largest, like I said, in Canada. The system is going to provide a reliable source of capacity and energy balancing services for Ontarians and will contribute to the decarbonization of the province's energy grid. Really, really excited about this one because it is a part of our larger portfolio of focusing on decarbonization of energy systems. And then the second one you mentioned is the advanced transit system, so specifically the REM in Montreal. So the REM is going to be connecting the airport with multiple stations along the way to downtown Montreal. And just another example of how we are as a company focused on sustainability related projects. So in addition to battery storage, we are focused on transit systems as well to contribute to sustainable transportation options across the country. And so the airport station is actually still being constructed, but there is some stations that are actually very recently opened. So that one should be complete shortly, and it'll provide a sustainable transportation option for people who are flying into Montreal Airport to get to downtown Montreal.
Excellent. You also focus on adopting zero emission equipment, and also piloting new technologies such as low carbon construction materials. So, can you give me a couple of examples of how you're doing that?
Yeah, for sure. So that really falls into the second pillar of our sustainability strategy, which is how we build.
Right.
And for the how, we really break down everything that happens on a construction site. So from the equipment that we're using, so that's kind of like your traditional yellow iron equipment, as we would call it. So your excavators, your cranes, your wheel loaders, and then you have your stationary equipment, such as your generators and hand tools, and then the materials that you actually use. So when we look at all of those components, we're really doing an assessment of like what alternatives are available and how can we reduce emissions on a construction site. And so when it comes specifically the yellow iron, the construction equipment, we have trialed electric construction equipment. We've had multiple conversations with our suppliers, and really it is working in collaboration with our suppliers to be able to trial these solutions. And so about 2 years ago, we were the first construction company in Canada to trial an electric excavator made by Volvo, and then followed by an electric wheel loader. And the purpose of the trial was really to look at how electric construction equipment integrates into our operations. What are the benefits? What are the challenges? Also, an opportunity for our employees from a change management perspective to really start to look at how this technology is going to be incorporated into their day-to-day tasks as well. And then on the material side, we are constantly looking at alternative materials. There's a lot of startup companies in Canada. Actually, Canada is very advanced in this space that are focusing on low carbon concrete. And so we trialed low carbon concrete from a startup company. They were a startup. Now they're grown over the last couple of years, but they're called carbon upcycling. And they've come up with a methodology which reduces emissions with concrete by about 20%. So we were able to trial that at our innovation center. So Aecon has its own innovation center. And we have actually used it in a lot of different applications. We used it for a sidewalk. We also used it for sort of a pathway at the innovation center. So just another example of how we're trying to look at different methods and looking at different construction material options.
It's wonderful how your company is being very innovative in this space. What general advice would you give to any company who wants to commit to a sustainability strategy? Like, how does one get even started in creating one?
Yeah, I would say that the first rule is to really be authentic and focus on what really matters to your company, and what matters to your stakeholders. And so one of the first exercises that I undertook when I started with Aecon was to do a stakeholder engagement exercise where we reached out to our investors, our clients, our employees, community members, community organizations to really get a sense of what is it that our stakeholders want us to be focusing on, what's important to them, what do they think a sustainable construction company looks like. So we did that external exercise, and then we also looked internally. We looked at what's important to us as an organization, what are our peers doing, what are some best practices, and so I would say really focus on what's authentic to you and what's important to your stakeholders. Sustainability is such a wide topic that you could focus on so many different things that you really should hone in to make the biggest impact, hone in on what's most important to you and your stakeholders, and then be realistic with the targets that you're setting. We hear a lot of companies setting targets these days. And sometimes you kind of question, you're like, well, that's interesting. How is this industry going to be getting to that target? So, really do sort of your own research, your own mapping exercises to think, what's really feasible for us to achieve.
Right. You really have to start with a survey. You have to get some feedback from everybody and then set those realistic expectations. You can't set a target where we're going to have 10 electric excavators in the next 5 years. There's a lot of moving parts to all of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
exactly. And you really need to look at what technology is available, what are the challenges we're going to face, how are we going to address those challenges? And that's why a target for a construction industry would look very different than a target for the real estate industry or the hospitality industry, because we're facing different challenges, we have different technology. So it's really important to be authentic and real with the industry that you're operating in.
Exactly. Last year, you launched a new podcast. It's called Road to Net Zero, where you're a co-host. What type of topics do you discuss with your special guests?
Yeah, we were really excited to launch this podcast. We produce a sustainability report every year, and we wanted an alternative, creative way to reach diverse audiences. So we focus on different topics related to sustainability in the construction industry. We really try to focus on sort of the trendy, timely topics. So what we've done so far is we've talked about the use of hydrogen in the construction industry. We've talked about electrification of construction equipment. We've done a podcast on low carbon concrete as well. And then we also focus on sort of the governance aspect of sustainability. So we've done a couple episodes on sustainability reporting and new sustainability reporting guidelines in Canada. There's a new sustainability framework called Envision, or newer when you compare it to LEED. So we've done an episode talking about how Envision is applied in the construction industry. And we have many more episodes coming out. We've done, actually, the latest one that was just released was about women in construction, and the programs that Aecon has, as well as some of the programs in the skills and trade sector for specifically women to attract more women in the construction industry. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'll be making sure to add your link to the podcast to this podcast too. It's always good to support one another because we're all on the road to net zero together. So it's good to support. That's wonderful. So finally, the last question I have for you is what's next? What's the next year or so looking like for Aecon on the sustainability side?
Yeah, I would say that we spent the last couple of years really establishing our governance frameworks for sustainability and really having our policies and our goals in place. And the next year is all going to be about technology and innovation. We're finally at a place where we're having those conversations with our supplier. The technology is slowly coming to fruition and coming to the market. So next year for us is all going to be about really what's happening on the field and integrating this new technology in the field and really looking at, how are we reducing our emissions during the construction phase of a project. We've already been able to achieve a 14% reduction, which is towards our 30% reduction by 2030. So it's building on that and really all the plans that we've been working on and the research that we're doing and really that coming into fruition the next year.
That's excellent. Well, I wish you and your team and everybody at Aecon the best of luck as you move forward. And thanks for taking the time to speak with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Maria, for having me.
Thanks again to Prab for sharing Aecon's commitment to sustainability. I hope this inspires companies, big or small, to adopt a sustainability strategy. This podcast is sponsored by the Smart Energy event. It's held in Halifax each year, and it's where smart, renewable energy people gather. I'm your host, Maria McGowan. Thanks so much for listening in.